Welcome to the first episode of the BEA Show, the podcast where we discuss all things esports and gaming. I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, forever and always, for this podcast, Bryony. Bryony, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Saul. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. So this is obviously the very first episode. Never done anything really like this before. I've hosted podcasts before and I've produced podcasts before, but never actually talked on a podcast before. Bryony, have you done much talking on podcasts before?
I'm talking, not on podcasts.
Okay.
So this is a first for me, but as a journalist, I will fill the air.
That's
if
good.
Need be.
I'm relying on you, hopefully, if it gets any quieter, because I know you're obviously very good with your journalism and you can talk as much as we hopefully need you to. So today on the show, with it being the first show, we wanted to try and get all the content team in just to have a quick chat, just about kind of everything and anything, but mostly about esports things today. So I will introduce everyone to the show. Thank you all for coming here. Morgan, Will, and Jonas, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
How are you all? Are you all very well prepared? Have you got drinks ready at the ready?
All sorted, yeah.
Tea, Coke, we're good to go.
Excellent.
That's a combo.
You might just see me reach over and get my comically large bottle of water at some point, so please don't laugh when I pick
It's
that
bigger
up.
than your head.
I know. Yeah. So it's quite interesting, I think, because for this show, especially with kind of the five of us being the content team, we're people who do talk regularly together, whether it just be kind of in person like this, or I guess is in person as being on camera gets, or offline typing. But when I can't even think when's the last time we were all kind of in a room just chatting about stuff that wasn't necessarily work related. There hasn't really been much of that, has there?
We have a block in our calendar for the weekly gaming sessions, but I can't tell you the last time we did that.
No.
Not work related, aside from those that saw each other, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. But yeah, it's not often. So
No, I'm hoping this should be nice then. So the topic of discussion today, or the main kind of topic of discussion today, is going to be how you got started in esports, which I think is something a lot of people like to know about, especially if those are people who want to get into the industry and want.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. People who want to get into the industry, or people who just have no clue about. Some people might not even recognize some of you guys. So I think it's a nice way just to kind of introduce yourselves in this kind of format. So, Morgan, do you want to start us off? How did you get into esports? Where did it all start for you?
Depends how long you want the answer to be. So at the moment, work within esports. So been involved over the past couple of years working in marketing. I've got Rolo with me, my little sidekick, so he will interrupt us a couple of times throughout this, I'm sure. But I've worked in the industry for the past couple of years, but the real journey kind of started around 10 years ago. It makes me sound old. I'm not actually old. But yeah, just before I turned 16, or maybe even a couple of years before that, but I attended my first LAN event when I was 16 years old. So I was involved as I guess, competitor in esports, mainly COD. So my first event was on the original Black Ops, and was the last live event on that particular game, as I think it was around September time. And yeah, just competed in numerous events in a mix of female teams as well as mixed teams. And then kind of decided to park that and then work within marketing and alternative industries, and then led my way to British esports. So a long journey, but I'm trying to summarize 10 years in 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
hopefully that helps.
That's good. So when it comes to, obviously you played in teams and esports before you actually kind of worked in esports. Where did the concept of esports kind of, when was that first introduced into your brain? Because I think about back when I was younger, I knew about YouTube, and I knew there was people on YouTube who made videos and kind of in teams, but I don't necessarily know the single point where esports entered kind of my vocabulary. Where was that for you? Can you remember?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a little bit blurry. I think initially how it started is you make friends through online matchmaking, and then your next step up from that in COD was playing game battles, which me and my friends then did. But then Dexerto now, but was Deserto then. had an online kind of forum where you could get scrims, do matchmaking. All of that was kind of done through that website. Very different to what Dexerto is now, which is, predominantly journalism and gossipy kind of news. But yeah, it all kind of came live from that site and someone pointing me in that direction. And I think it just worked out timing wise, because when I went on the website, a bunch of females were looking for a fourth player to go to this event in London, which was actually at the Emirates Stadium. And it kind of just progressed from that point onwards. So yeah, a little bit blurry as to, how that kind of came about. But yeah, it was through someone I knew.
Yeah, very good. So I've got a photo, a lovely photo here to show everyone of that you sent us of you back in the day. Is this one of the tournaments you were talking about? Is this one of the ones?
Do you know, when you asked for the photos, at first I was like, oh, this would be fine because it's a moment, within the past. Whereas actually seeing it now, I've got very big regrets.
Yeah. Apologies to the audio only listeners. You're missing out. I would recommend finding this on YouTube.
Well, I guess that's a plug to watch the video version instead.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, so that was the first event that we went to. And the funny thing is, the two girls in the middle, I think they've actually done a British esports stream with us when we played Pummel Party with Elliot.
Oh,
but
okay.
I still talk to them now. So I've known them for, 11 years maybe. And we still talk on almost a daily basis now, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But yeah, first female team, we got picked up by quite a prestigious esports team at the time. They were called Team Foreign. They were based in Norway. And they had a pro team that I think ended up placing second or third at that event. But yeah, it's a little bit wild, lots of crowds that sat behind us when we were playing. And unfortunately, I think the first team that we got within the bracket was called Mythics, which featured Guitarga. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but a massive French COD player. I think he still is quite a big personality. But yeah, it is quite daunting. But we got a couple of flags on CTF against them. Obviously didn't win, but every time we got a flag, everyone was going nuts. So it was such an atmosphere and such a buzz. But yeah, it was very exciting.
Yeah, that's one thing I really regret that I just never ever had the opportunity to do when I was younger, was go to any of these like live events. Not even just like to compete, but actually just to go and to experience. I've only ever been to like, I think the earliest one is like EGX, maybe like 3-4 years ago, and I watched the Counter-Strike tournament they had there. That's like the only in person, apart from like League of Legends Worlds. So that might have been the year before when it was
I guess
in
we're
London.
going to have to go to. We've done Epic LAN as a BEA team before you guys started. Maybe we look to do something similar at Epic or Insomnia.
That'd be
But
good.
it's so much fun, so much fun. It's just, as always, everyone's schedule aligning and the money.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the week off from Chester, which was quite nice. So maybe we can do that again.
Just pencil it in the calendar and just tell him it's happening, and he'll guess. Maybe he'll just pretend it always has been happening. We'll just see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait and see what happens. Then you'll have a proper LAN experience. So that's the plan.
That'd be good. So transitioning from that into marketing, then how does that happen? Then was it marketing something you were always interested in?
No, it's the short answer. I think I was at the time in my life where I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Games was my life, and I was just like, oh well, I'm going to see how it goes. And naturally, nothing came up with it because the opportunities that were there now weren't there. God knows how many years ago. So it kind of came around because I think I was still at school at the time, and then I started to have to think about what I was going to do after. I wasn't great at school, did pretty bad, and then through playing COD, I had to learn how to brand myself really quickly through social media. Lots of interview opportunities came up when I was kind of at the peak of what I was doing, competing. So I've got a very embarrassing Channel 4 documentary that I did, and a couple of others like Tommy, who's still involved in COD, did it, and a cosplayer, and a couple of other people throughout the industry. And then a Vice interview. There was a couple of things that kind of came up where I was like, oh God, I have no idea what I'm supposed to say. Will what I say get twisted? And really start to think about how I want to be perceived when it comes to this type of thing. So ended up doing an apprenticeship because I didn't quite have the grades to do university, or I did college for a year, and then just wanted to jump straight into it. So that's kind of where it all kind of intertwined, just from a spark that I got through playing COD, provided an avenue or an opportunity that I thought I'd give a go in. And who would have known, 9 years later, that I'm now working in marketing full time. So yeah, it's all come full circle. It just kind of shows what can happen. Is as simple as competing. You can end up making a career out of it, whether, well, God knows what other roles or elements I would have kind of pursued. But yeah, marketing was the one that stuck.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things with esports is because people outside of esports look in and think, oh, it's just the players and it's just the managers and it's just they've revolved very much around the team aspect of esports jobs. But there's so many other different things I don't think people yet realize go into esports. I guess that's part of what we're doing here at the BEA is to kind of promote and make that make people more aware of just exactly what goes into esports and all the jobs and all the things that kind of go into that. Right, Will, you're up next then. Will, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started in esports.
Quite frank, mine's very, very similar to Morgan's. So I came up through playing Call of Duty, getting an Xbox 360 in 2010, 2011. Started as playing with school friends, and then it sort of developed as I want to do this, and they were sort of on the FIFA train. So I started playing COD a bit more actively when it came to Black Ops 2, and then sort of developed into Ghosts and moving on. So I competed at my first event in 2015, I want to say, which Morgan actually was at the event, which is quite
It's
strange
funny
to
that
say.
we've crossed paths but didn't know of each other at that point. But you're a couple of years younger than me, so you must have been really young when you went.
Yeah, I was 15. I might have actually been 14, depending on how the year turned. But I just remember taking my grandma drove me down, and she just sat in the car park of Leicester Tigers rugby ground and waited all day for me, bless her. So it's quite lucky that I didn't make it to day 2 for her to travel all the way down again. I remember taking out a cup of tea for her. It's like, oh, can I get a cup of tea? So I walked all the way down and brought her a tea. I was like, you can come in, there's no harm. There's just a bunch of nerds inside. Like they're not going to hurt you. And then sort of after that, it transitioned from me playing video games a lot to school. At that point, there was no financial in it, so it was very much you need to study, is what the message was from a parent standpoint. And then following sort of school, heading into college and picking up part-time work, I started my own organization, which is still running to this day, which is quite cool to sort of have a side task in a space that I work in that I do. And then it sort of stemmed picking up a lot of experience to then starting at BEA last year. And that's sort of where I am now.
Yeah, so obviously you're the social media man. And social media, everyone uses social media nowadays, but it takes a bit of skill to be quite good at social media to be able to know exactly what trends and what doesn't. And you're pulling a bit of a face, but you are quite good. You've got like these jobs for a reason, so definitely don't feel
Quite
bad.
good, Will. Quite good.
Yeah.
To hear that.
That's as good as
It's going on my CV.
Mad.
Oh no. So, like, what made you want to kind of pursue that direction of the social media before we kind of go into more of your Lucent and your business kind of running stuff?
Honest opinion, I picked up social media while I was working at Bulldog because I quite frankly couldn't stand Tony running it, acting as a Londoner and saying the word bruv in his tweets.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
I picked up a lot of my social media time in League of Legends and Call of Duty to sort of take it off of Tony's back. And then opportunities with things like the UKAL stemmed where their social media manager had let them down. So I was like, well, I know that I'm involved, but like let me pick up some extra work. And then I sort of just continue to bounce around, picking up that experience to then sort of having a connection with Dom where I was like, look, I'm trying to get out of my 9-to-5 apprenticeship. I'm not enjoying it. How can I get out? And he was like, oh, have you applied for this? So sort of that one conversation probably gave me a bit of weight in my application and moving forward.
Yeah. So then with your Lucent things, obviously that's a much bigger project for you. because it's obviously you're at the very top, running a lot of different things in different circumstances. What do you find most challenging about that kind of stuff, having come from an environment perhaps where you weren't really like taught this stuff necessarily, you're just kind of doing it off your own back?
I mean, a lot of it's ticked off with what I do in a 9 to 5, right? In terms of BEA, and then what I picked up in the past. I think the hardest thing and the hardest challenge that I've come across running Lucent is getting a financial stability into the brand that's not just 4 lads putting in some money each month and then going international with it. It's that is the hardest thing that I've had to tackle in doing Lucent.
Yeah. So we also have a lovely photo of you here, which you look very excited to be playing Call of Duty at the young age that you are. So, do you remember this day? Do you remember this photo at all?
Yeah, I had to rebuy the game actually because I got an Xbox One like 4 weeks later.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
I'm glad that my choice on going to a barber has definitely developed in the past, and I can't even start to speak on my brother's trim because, well, I'll let him defend himself on Twitter with that one because, yeah. But no, I think it's one of them. Going through my mum's Facebook at the same time, Morgan sort of put the photos that she had in. It was a grueling task going through any esports photos that I had.
Yeah.
And it just puts into perspective how young you were as well. That's the crazy thing, because I knew I was young when I started, but you look really young.
That's 30. That's 13. That's 13, 14. That was ages ago.
And are you still as much of a Call of Duty enthusiast now, Will? That's the question.
No, not at all.
Oh.
I'll watch it, but I mean, I'm not a plastic fan, but I'll only watch Call of Duty for optic. And I think at the point that sort of Seth Scump sort of stops, I think that's the point where I move on from it. I think when I sold my Xbox previous and then bought a PC and started playing Counter-Strike, I think that's where I found a newfound love for an FPS shooter that is a bit more tied in with the community when you look at it from a nowadays perspective.
You got to think COD is very different as well. I mean, you guys probably won't know as much from not being from that scene, but the grassroots was like the biggest thing about COD. God knows how many years ago when it was in its prime, when we were going to these events, whereas now it's not grassroots focused at all, to the point where you don't kind of get that same buzz, you don't have that same sense of kind of community that used to be there. So it's so different in comparison to what it's like nowadays, where all you've really got to watch is the pros. That's all there is.
Yeah, it's a shame that, because I think that's what makes a lot of great communities within esports, is kind of the grassroots stuff and people who aren't necessarily the best at the game kind of getting together and having fun and competing at the same time. So yeah, it's a shame really, I guess, that Call of Duty seems to be lacking that, because everyone loves a bit of Call of Duty. Everyone's played Call of Duty at least once in a lifetime, haven't they? So
I think
I miss the days you pay for an event just to play absolutely terribly. Probably 300, 400 quid an event to be knocked out in 2 games. Those were the days. They were the days.
I think they want to get to the point where League of Legends is, right, where you sort of regionalised. And I think with COD, the thing that was always lacking is there was never opportunities for EU players. And it's still a problem to today's market. You barely see any teams over there in the professional standpoint that are using EU players. I think last year was the first time that a team in Toronto Ultra had finally pulled out a team that were sort of all EU based, and it benefited them with a second place finish at Worlds.
Yeah, excellent. So, Jonas, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How did you get started with all your videography and everything that you do then? Where did that come from?
So videography, all of that came from, ages ago when I got my first camera when I was 13 or something like that, and started doing proper photography for school events and just local events when I was 15, 16. And since then it sort of developed into mainly event photography. I still remember the day when I wanted to go and take photos of the first esports event. That was when Riot had the World's quarterfinals in London, I think, or something like that. And I brought my gear and everything, and I'm going through security, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so where's your press pass?" Just like, "No, I'm just freelancing just for myself. So like, you're not allowed to bring any of that. I'm just like, what do I do now? Like, I don't want to leave all of my gear in the cloakroom. Do I just leave? Do I go? So that was my first attempt at event photography. I have to say I developed a lot since then. Now I'm allowed inside the venue, which is nice. But yeah, since sort of, photography since 15, video since probably 20, something like that.
And what about then like the esports side of things? So where were you first introduced to esports, and was it always something you had in mind when you went into your photography, or was it something that came later?
Yeah, so I didn't have the experience like Morgan and Will had of, sort of growing up with esports, because I'm from Lithuania, and when I was sort of that age, there were no LAN events or anything like that. Even if there were, they were on the opposite side of the country, and I had no option of attending any of them. So the first I still remember the first horrible day of when I was introduced into League of Legends. And then I started playing it nonstop, and I was just playing so much League that I realized I'm not entirely enjoying League anymore, but I still want to keep playing. So I decided, you know what, I can do one better. I can start creating content around League of Legends. So that's what I started doing, and that sort of was my first initial step towards content specifically for esports.
Yeah, excellent. That might tie nicely actually into the photo that we have of you, because looks like you've got League of Legends open in the background there. What's going on in this photo?
So the tricky part is that it's really hard for me to find a photo of myself, because I'm always the person behind the camera. I can send you photos of other people in the frame, but not me. So this is probably one of the first times that I recorded a patch review show. So essentially all of my videos were in Lithuanian, because I wanted, there weren't that many Lithuanian League of Legends creators or anything like that, and I wanted to create content for that. So what I used to do whenever a patch came out, I would wait for Freak and LS to make their videos. I would listen, make notes, translate, and say like, this is like, I'm an expert in League of Legends, and this is all of the information that you need to know about it. So this is me recording. So you have the League of Legends client in the background, the audio recordings, just to make it as nice and interesting. But the reason why I really like this photo specifically is because this is the setup that me and my now wife share. This is our bedroom / living room / everything. We didn't have a separate room for recording or anything like that. And you see my desk on the left side of the image. You see her desk behind me, and you see our bed, and that's all of there's a mirror with a door behind it. That's all of the space that we had. So space was non-existent. There was no things like setting up green screens or anything like that. So I started doing videos like that, and slowly it picked up, and then sort of got an opportunity to do esports at Roehampton University, which was lovely. But it was fun. I don't want to go back to those days, but it was fun.
So I think one question probably that suits you well, Jonas, is I think a lot of people fancy themselves as like photographers or videographers nowadays, but don't necessarily know a good starting point. What would be like your recommendation if someone were to say, "Oh, I want to go and take photos. I want to go and film stuff. How do I start?" What would you say?
Yeah. So the two things that you need to, in my opinion, you need to have is to obviously, you have to have equipment, have good photos and things like that. But you need to be proactive. So you need to look out, find the opportunities yourself, and you have to be reliable. You can't be one of those photographers, especially with how small UK esports industry is. You need to show up, and you need to, be on time, produce photos on time, and everything like that. And as much as I don't like, working for free or volunteering for extensive periods of time, to get, my foot in esports, I did sort of volunteering for the sports organization for pretty much a year, creating good content. I hope it was good content, until I got, opportunity to officially join BEA. Yeah, so. Be reliable, be good at what you're doing, and you might initially have to do some freelancing for on a volunteer basis.
I have to butt in with a question. When did the man bun fit into the timeline?
Oh, that was as soon as COVID hit, and I realized I don't really have the option of going to hairdressers or anything like that. So it was I can't be bothered to spend a lot of money, and my wife decided that it's also not worth spending the money. So now the money goes into our savings account, which is nice.
Yeah, your hairstyles are very different, so I had to throw it in there.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Bryony, then, on to you. How did esports start for you? Where did it all begin?
So, like you were saying earlier, I don't really have that sort of bridge between gaming and when it sort of turned to esports. It sort of all just merged into one. So I've been involved in gaming since I could hold a controller. Like, I know that's a cliche that most other people say, but it's true. Like, my dad's been a gamer all his life, and he's got 2 daughters. So my sister's 2 years older than me, and he spends his time bonding with us by playing games. So that was a good starting point, and it sort of kept. My mum's not too impressed that everyone has progressively gone into gaming and esports and the industry, and we literally sit in different parts of the house talking to each other in different rooms over Discord. We all play together, and we all have a passion for it. So it started really young, and then my sister got me into Overwatch in 2016, so just as it was coming out. And they let me put my own sort of spin on their account, so I could play on their account for a bit, just try some stuff out. And then I got my own PC in 2017, because then I was console up until that point. And then my life changed once I got my first desktop. And I started playing Overwatch more, and then getting more competitive with it. And then I had a 6-stack of friends from school, and we'd go home every night and we'd play until the early hours of the morning. We'd go compete together. We'd just play together all the time. And then I went through a few tournaments through like Comic Cons, and then we got picked up by a few people to go to some sort of like amateur opens in Birmingham. So we went there in the NEC, which was scary. It was big. And being the only female on the team as well, I sort of got a few like, oh, you shouldn't be gaming. You're not very good. Oh, it's cliche. You're the healer of the team. But all that jazz. But that's a whole different story. I could speak about that for ages. I'm sure Morgan could as well. But yeah, so we got there. It was going well, and then for it being an amateur tournament, they subbed in Valkyria, the pro player, who's one of the best Pharahs I've ever seen, and just completely dominated. So yeah, we lost, and we lost hard.
Yeah, reasonable.
Basically.
From the other team.
Yeah. So that was at that point, and then I sort of left school, left those group of friends, and we never actually spoke again. So I've been trying to build up my own little group. And
a lovely end to that story. That's so dark.
We lost and we never spoke again.
That loss hit hard then, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've sort of since then, and then my little brother was born, and when he was starting to get old enough, my dad obviously took the initiative to do what he did with me and my sister and shove games at him. So he's now he's 11, but he's not old enough to play, but we don't question that. And he's now one of my go-to Overwatch buddies, because for an 11-year-old, he's pretty darn good. Nice. And I've been coaching him since he could play, so I sort of feel nice about that. So that sort of, I don't have that bridge. I have a merge of, it was gaming, I was enjoying it, I competed, and now I'm here.
Nice. So the question, this question might apply to a couple of people. So I guess it's everyone who has siblings who used to share like consoles and stuff with. In my house, we had a rule where if I was on the Xbox and someone else wanted to turn on the Xbox, we had a half an hour rule. So it's like, oh, you have to give them half an hour's notice, and then it was their turn. Did anyone else have this in their house? Is half an hour? My wife tells me that half an hour was really short, and that's really unfair on us that we only asked for half an hour. And I agree now, retrospectively looking back.
It is really short.
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite fortunate. My sister, we're chalk and cheese. So she's 18 months older than me, but doesn't really game. As far as it goes, probably the most I ever saw her game was Nintendo Switch or the DS or something along those lines. But when we did have a PC and it was like the realm of RuneScape, Habbo Hotel, all of that stuff, that's when we'd end up having to take shifts, because I'd want to spend 6 hours on RuneScape, but she might want to go play Habbo Hotel. And yeah, we both played both. She didn't play RuneScape, but she played Habbo, and I played Habbo for a couple of years, despite how dodgy that now is. But yeah, we had to do shifts and on the old AOL dial-up internet, and yeah, we kind of got cut off at different segments, but not half an hour. I'd definitely say we had a little bit longer than that, but I've definitely had my fair share of internet wires and extension leads getting cut.
Ooh.
Because I took the mic. But yeah, not too competitive.
I don't have the issue at all.
Go on, Will.
I never had the issue because my brother's 5 years younger than me. So by the time he got onto the DS, I'd already moved to Xbox, and then when he got Xbox, I'd already moved to computer. It's quite weird because obviously, I know your brother and whatnot, so it's like I see sort of a similar overlap, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we had time limits, but I don't think I ever followed them to the point. As long as my homework was done, it was like, well, what do you physically want me to do?
Yeah.
As long as I like went out and played football and stuff, it was like, well, at that point, what more can I do, right? But yeah, no, I never had an overlap, or I had like a bedtime, I guess, but never a screen time.
Yeah, I was always limited to 1 hour of PC use a day, because my parents were very much, like, oh, PC is gonna ruin your eyesight. Well, it kind of did, but it doesn't matter.
3 of us on this call with glasses.
Yeah. So what I used to do, I used to get home sort of 2-3 hours before my parents would come back from work, and I would play for those hours. And then as soon as I hear them unlocking the door, because I would make sure to lock as many all of doors possible and make sure it's as hard as possible for them to get into the house, so I have as long as time to switch off the PC. But it got to the point where I would have to pretty much just unplug the PC in the middle of the game, which obviously wasn't good for matchmaking, but also not good for a PC. I think I bricked 2 PCs that way, but that doesn't matter.
Nice.
Until they caught up by me just sort of randomly running out of the living room, just saying, I'm not doing anything, I'm just in the living room, and yeah, PC is warm for some reason, but I wasn't playing. So yeah, that wasn't fun, Dave, and they caught me.
The fair share of I tiptoed across the landing, and my dad's landing still to this day, you have to know where to step so it doesn't make a lot of noise. And it was like I learnt the pattern so well, because the amount of times I stayed up and did late night gaming, and he's such a light sleeper that you did have to sneak around, and you can't call out on COD quietly. I don't think any COD player is known for being quiet. So yeah, that was a big challenge. But I mean, eventually you're able to say to my dad, well, it all kind of worked out. So
Yeah.
in the end of it, I'm now working in the industry that used to drive you loopy, because you just saw it as gaming. But yeah, it's quite funny how it comes around full circle. Still to this day, he doesn't really understand what I do, but he'll get there.
Yeah. Sometimes some of the quiet callouts work as well. Like in the photo that I showed before, when I was playing games and my wife was sleeping right next to me, I sort of had to do whisper callouts and things like that. And and some people really sort of some people. When you scream at a microphone, some people get realize that you're really passionate about gaming and they start listening to you. But whispering sometimes works as well for some people. So some people really listen to my callouts when I sort of whispered into them.
I feel like there's more passion sometimes when you're whispering angrily to your teammates.
Yeah.
They don't mess with you when you've got that tone.
Exactly. They don't want to piss you off because they're scared of what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Did any of you ever do the it's come back up as a TikTok trend, but it's the DS thing where it's like under your pillow, but Mario Kart's still playing, so like the do is going underneath the pillow. I had that with my mum all the time. She'd come in and be like, "What? Give it over," and I pretended to be asleep. I'm not on it. I'm not on it. And you just literally see like under my pillow, just have like a little UV light under it going.
Kind of light.
Just like it's just baiting me out. And then I finally adapted and closed the screen when I needed to, so then it never got caught, and life was great from that point on.
It's
Nice.
probably a different topic, but what on earth happened to the PSP? So I remember having
Never
one,
had one.
but I don't remember
Never had one.
using it.
No, I never had one.
DS, I remember it. Game Boy, I remember it. PSP, like so many more capabilities, can't remember using it.
I never had a console in my life.
You've never had
Really?
a
Not a
console?
single one?
Nope, not even a single one. Nope.
Who invited him? Who invited him in? I think most of us started off console by the sounds of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it Xbox or PlayStation though? Which way did you all start?
Xbox 360 first, and then COD changes its competitive format. So for the first couple of years, it was Xbox, and then I think they signed a deal with PlayStation, so all the LAN events converted to PlayStation. So everyone with a Xbox One for like 18 months then had to figure out how on earth they're going to be able to afford a PlayStation 4 after just switching consoles. So that was a fun one. I think I ended up selling and trading. I can't remember how it worked, but yeah, a combo of the two.
I think it was Game RCX on that exact route did. I think you exchanged your Xbox One and you Connect, and you got a PS, and then give them £100 and you got a brand new PS4. And then I'd literally walked out with that and COD. But no, the original Xbox. And so I never owned a PlayStation until literally the Call of Duty change, and then from that point, I've just had both.
PlayStation 1. So it would have went PlayStation, Xbox, PlayStation 1 original Xbox, or PlayStation 1 2 original Xbox, and then through the 360, the Xbox One, then the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much
Gosh,
exactly the
that's
same with me. Yeah, because I had original PlayStation 1 and 2, then made the switch to Xbox for like the longest time. Never had a PlayStation 3, but then came PlayStation 4. I ended up with one, and then yeah, I think that's pretty similar.
Just think of the money throughout that timeline as
no.
well. How much Xbox and PlayStation have made off of you over the years. It's
Disgusting.
more crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, disgusting is the right word.
I got my Xbox One because, funnily enough, my stepmom got super drunk and she was like asking what I got for my birthday. I was like, I got a couple of games for my Xbox 360, and she offered to buy me an Xbox One. And as like a naive 15, 16-year-old, I was like, woke up the next morning, I was like, I was sober, you're buying me an Xbox One. And then I don't think my dad's ever recovered from having to buy a console 2 weeks after release at like £400-500 because his partner had said that when she was drunk that I'd get one. So at that point, I was like the first kid in the school to get one. I felt like on a new level, but
Wow.
I've never enjoyed a console like it.
It's still crazy now how people afford consoles, just in general. I mean, I think I looked at the PlayStation 5. It was a very quick look because I looked at the price of it and I was just like, I don't know whether I can justify that.
Yeah.
And even secondhand PlayStation 4s, if you still look now, it still costs you between 150, 200 quid.
Yeah.
And just like, that's just insanity.
It's the price, and then if you want the newer ones, it's the scarcity as well. It's just like, how on earth does anyone get hold of a PlayStation 5? It just seems impossible for everyone nowadays.
I got two in one day. That was a very depressing day for the bank account, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that is really sad.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I'd have a tear if that happened to me.
Gary's a
Rock
happy
myself.
chappy now. Gary is very happy that he has a PS5 that sits next to his TV.
Brilliant.
There you go. So, Bryony, that was a really long kind of tangent that we
Sorry.
took there, but I wanted to still at least touch back on your journalism back. So we didn't really touch on that at all when we were speaking to you last. So, journalism, what kind of inspired your interest with journalism and then taking it into esports? How was that transition from, was it always esports focused that you wanted to do, or did it come from like traditional journalism into esports?
So my initial career was not going to be in journalism or esports at all. I wanted to be a geneticist
Okay.
and work in genetics. So I was very
You might have
solid
to
on
expand.
biology and chemistry.
That's
I was
why I
very
don't know.
sciencey during my school years. Excuse me, all my voice is going now. So I was really sort of set on it. And then my GCSEs didn't go as I planned, and spent most of my time gaming as well. But the only GCSE that went like the best, because I was part of that first year group to do the numbered GCSEs.
Mm.
And I hate doing this, but I got a special certificate because I was the first person to get 100% on the English.
Nice.
So, oh my god. So I've always known I could write. And then from there I did English at college and media, which sort of then led me to a more journalism side. And on top of doing all that, I was gaming constantly, getting my Overwatch tattoos, just living in gaming merch. And it sort of was slowly taking over my life. And then I went to university, and I still am almost done, to do journalism. So learnt about the more law and ethicsy side of things. And then in 2020, I applied to be a volunteer Overwatch writer for Champs. And then 4 months later, I applied to be the role I am in now. And then we are here. So it wasn't always what I wanted to do, but I am very glad I took this route because I'm very passionate about it and I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, excellent. So, Bryony, we also have an embarrassing photo of you. You'll be glad to know. So you were talking earlier about how you obviously played with your parents and things like that. I very much appreciate that. Is it Buzz that you're playing there in the phone?
Yeah, on the PS2.
Amazing. Do you remember this at all?
Yeah, it was Boxing Day. We'd just gotten Buzz and the new controllers for the PS2. Because we always see my dad's side of the family. He's the one in the blue jumper. Cool Dad Green, he likes to call himself. So we would all just sort of play together and things, and it was just a good time. And then my sister and I would play Simpsons Hit and Run after that. And then I progressed when I got my PS3 into Modern Warfare 2, and we would co-op Borderlands for hours on end. But
did you used to do driving tests on Simpsons Hit and Run? Because that's one way me and my sister bonded through games, was going around and driving like a good Samaritan.
Oh.
No, we just go crazy, like I do in GTA at the moment. I just
run
don't
everyone
care.
over. So we did that too, but yeah, for some reason just decided to do a driving test. But I guess it's like when you're much younger, you're like, oh, I want to play with like the dolls and pretend to be, I don't know, it's mum or it's dad or whatever. Whereas I guess that's just what we did on Simpsons Hit and Run. You just give yourself kind of like scenarios to.
I'll pretend to be a safe
but...
driver for an hour.
Yeah, it got boring really quickly. You do it for like 10 minutes and you're just like, all these traffic lights forever on like red because I'm not waiting for them. So
but it's always been
how it worked.
It's always been nice because my dad's always known what I'm on about, like feeling passionate about gaming. So my mum not so much, but my dad works for Game Head Office, the company. My sister makes games. And I write about the game. So, and then my little brother has got it set that he's going to be a professional Rocket League player. So,
you're a few steps off of making a business there, I think, with all of those different.
Yeah, you got a nice
Green
little combo.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've taken over the industry.
Green Family Studios or something.
Yes.
That could
work. But yeah, it's just nice. Like we could have fun and have something to bond over. And I know not a lot of people have that sort of thing where their parents understand about gaming or their passion for it. But I feel quite fortunate that I've got sort of a role model that sort of brought me into it.
Yeah. See, I guess when it comes to me then, and I guess where did I start with esports? I think a lot of it definitely came when I was younger. And I think back to kind of similar to what you're saying, Bryony, where it was introduced to me. I think I know my dad definitely did play games because I remember I used to watch him play like Splinter Cell and stuff on his little PC that he had. And I had my uncle Jim, who I think he was the reason I'm sure we got the PlayStation.
I love the details, my Uncle Jim.
Yeah.
You could have just said uncle. But
well,
Uncle Jim.
If he's listening, he might be listening. That's why. So I'll give him a quick shout out. Yeah. So I'm sure he was the one who introduced me to the PlayStation, and I used to love. I've always loved games, so even from like a young age, I used to have the Sega Mega Drive, Sonic. Like my parents always tell everyone it's like, oh, it's Sonic that he started with. And when then I guess growing up from there, the concept of playing against other people online didn't really come until it was Call of Duty and it was Modern Warfare 2. And I went to a friend's house and I have this really vivid memory of going to the friend's house and seeing, do you know, on the Xbox, you had to have that little wireless adapter that you had to have plugged into the back. And this was like the coolest thing ever. And it cost like £50. I was like, oh my goodness, I need this. And then I learned then further that you had to pay for an Xbox Live account. I was like, oh, this is horrendous. I'm never going to be able to convince my parents to buy this stuff. But they did eventually. It was very nice of them. And that was kind of my first online experience, I think, was playing Modern Warfare 2. But I was never really into the competitive aspect of it. I just played for the sake of playing. It wasn't until I think League of Legends that my kind of the competitive side of esports came in for me. I remember my friend introduced us to it in high school, and at the time my mindset was, oh, it's just a free to play game, and free to play games are always a bit naff and they're not really any good. And then 8 years later, or whatever it is, 10 years later, here I am still playing the game today. So it tells you about that, doesn't it, really? But I remember wanting more from the game, and then someone told me, I don't know if someone told me or if I found it myself, but I used to sit in the canteen on a morning after my dad would take us to school and he'd drop us off on his way to work. So it was like the early hours before school actually started. So we'd all sit in the canteen with like me and some friends. I'd sit there and I'd watch like season 2 LCS like games on my phone that I downloaded. And I think that's where it started for me, more so than anything. And then from there, me and my friends, we always had interest in making stupid videos, whether it be like Minecraft or I'm sure there's like a Team Fortress 2 video out there somewhere that me and my friends, there was no real rhyme or reason for it. We just wanted to record ourselves doing something. But no one really had the motivation, I guess maybe is not the right word, but just no one wanted to learn how to do the video editing because no one really understood how it worked. So I took it upon myself to figure out how to do that, which I guess inspired the passion today. So I've loved the video editing aspect of it and making like things funny. I watched YouTube probably far too much at that age as well, where I used to watch all these kind of gaming videos and I used to think, oh, I wish I could do stuff like this with the video edits and making it funny and things. So that's definitely kind of where I started. The photo I have, unfortunately, it's not very esports specific. It's just me playing Guitar Hero, but this is just, I guess, an example of, yeah, I've been doing it for
concentration.
Yeah,
is real.
That's it. Still as handsome as ever, of course, as well. But yeah, games have just been like a massive part of my life for ages, and I think I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity now to be able to kind of share that passion with others. And I'm really gutted that we didn't have things like the champs when I was in high school. I always talk to my friends about this, and we always say, "Oh, wouldn't it have been cool if we could have competed like as a school in like League of Legends?" Because we all reckon we'd have been dead good. We probably wouldn't have been, but we'd like to think so.
If we had COD in champs, then I'd be confident. But
Could you imagine?
I've got no chance. I've got no chance of winning.
Saul, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
You said that your uncle is Jim. Does that mean that your uncle is Sheldon off of Big Bang Theory?
No, it's not. His name is Parsons, isn't it? Is that his last name? Yeah, no
Yeah,
relation. Unless maybe there is relation. I just don't know. If I can claim any of his royalties, that'd be great, but maybe not.
And then another important question: Guitar Hero, obviously. Was it Guitar Hero or was it the other one?
Guitar Hero, yeah.
What Guitar Hero?
3
Of all of them.
3, 100%. I think for me, 3 was the one I started
Really?
on, yeah, and 3 was the one I used to play the most. I remember when we got it for the Wii because the Wii was the cheapest version, and so that was the one that my parents got for us, and it was Guitar Hero 3. It came in like a bundle, and so 3 was the one I remember playing the most and remember being the best at. I think after that there was it was like Guitar Hero World Tour, and there was another one.
World Tour was my favorite.
Yeah.
And then I remember my dad bought me DJ Hero.
I had DJ Hero as
like
well.
you just sit there with the deck.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We had
I still have that
Band
somewhere,
Hero. So we had it was me, my mum, and my sister. We had the drum kit, we had the guitar, we had the mic.
Your own little rock bands.
Yeah.
The Greens again.
We But yeah, I have bad memories of the Wii. I tried to suppress that. There's a reason they put those warnings to wear the wrist strap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We
Mad mistakes probably happened in numerous families. God, like you see all these TikToks now around people with the VR headsets. I mean, if the Wii wasn't bad enough with the controller launching out your hand, people running full pelt into furniture and TVs and I can't imagine.
So thank you everyone for sharing kind of this time with us. I think it's really nice for everyone to kind of get to know you guys a little bit more, as well as just to kind of know how it all started for you. Because I know there's hopefully, in theory, a lot of people listening who are wanting to know about like how they can get into esports and where it all started for us, and maybe they can have the same thing. So I appreciate you all taking the time to share your stories with us today. So just in closing, we have a new segment on the podcast. I guess all segments are new because it's the first episode, but we've got a new segment on the podcast where we ask our guests which of the two options they prefer and why. And so this or that we prepared today is FPS or MOBA. Which would you rather play and why? Morgan, should we start with you?
Oh, so do you want thinking time while I...
Oh yeah,
I've already had enough time to think about this answer.
Bryony, go ahead then.
I mean, Jonas knows from our video that we did at the Hive of our secret confessions, of which mine's not very secret because everyone at BEA knows it, but I hate MOBAs. So, I mean, I just can't immerse myself in it. That's why I like FPS so much, because I can feel like I'm there and like I can actually put some skill into practice there and aim and do bits and bobs. I just really don't like being above and seeing everything overhead.
Okay.
And I just like sort of being immersed in it, really.
So it's an immersive thing more so than anything for you, rather than just kind of the style of game.
And League is just a horrible place, apparently. So I've avoided it.
Yeah, I've played it for, what did I say, like 10 years, and you're not wrong.
There, Briley.
Yeah.
Dangerous. I can go next. I did actually have to think about this because things have changed a lot over the years. I do have a more love for MOBA than I used to. The only thing, as Bryony said, I think I'm not saying it's mechanically easier to play an FPS, but on a MOBA, there's so much more you need to consider, which my brain just doesn't want to do the math, or yet alone want to learn what every single item does to each build, and it's just and learn each of the heroes along the way, or champions, or whatever you want to call it. So I do really like League. I just don't get any better at it because I don't want to put in the time to the whole knowledge and mathematical elements. Whereas FPS, you choose a loadout, you go, you point and click, and the mechanics are just so much easier to kind of grasp, although that has its own kind of talent in itself in perfecting that, depending on what game you play. But definitely more of a love for FPS. Number one, because of the background in COD. So loved COD for years. Don't necessarily play it anymore. But love Valorant, love CSGO. I could always get on board with an FPS easier than MOBA. So FPS for me.
I think mine's quite an obvious one. I'll play both, right? But if I'm going off of the scale of which one I not necessarily play more, but which I've got more titles in that I enjoy, then my answer is FPS because I only play one MOBA.
Same with me.
Yeah, so I get absolutely horrible motion sickness from some FPS games, but even with that, I would still choose FPS. I guess it's just the ability to, in certain FPS games, you can carry 1v5, 1v10, or however it is. You can have those clutch moments where I feel in MOBAs it's becoming increasingly more difficult in all of the MOBAs that are available. So even with motion sickness, it's FPS for me.
When I came up with this, I was not expecting everyone to go FPS.
I know, this is
I
a
think
surprise.
we've got a little 5-man squad here.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I think we've got a BEA team. Although, if we're all big fans of FPS, genuinely, I think we've tried Valorant on a lunchtime once before. But a lot of those people were MOBA focused. No offense to Elliot and Alice. Maybe we give Valorant a go. We might have a good time in ranked. Who knows?
Maybe we should. See,
So,
for me, For me, this is tricky as well, I guess. I do think I lean more towards MOBA just because, see, in my mind, the only
Think
way...
about Halo, Sol. Think about Halo.
I know, this is the problem, isn't it? Because it's like, I started with Call of Duty, I love Halo to death, and Counter-Strike and Valorant are just games so, from a spectator point of view, are so easy and accessible in terms of esports, just to watch and know what's going on, Counter-Strike especially. But in terms of playing, I don't know what it is about League of Legends that I just get so like obsessed with. I don't know if it's just this point. It's what is it, like sunken cost fallacy, where I've just put so much money and time into it, where if I just stop playing now or don't enjoy it as much now, I just feel like I've wasted so much time. So I don't know if that's part of it in the back of my
It's all
mind.
just built different. I mean,
Yeah.
I get too triggered at MOBAs at not getting any better or not. Even the climb. I don't think any
Oh, yeah.
FPS games are that hard to climb. CS:GO's a little bit weird because
Yeah,
you don't
still
actually
to
ever
this
really know
day.
when you're going to rank up.
Yeah, I've still
Um,
no idea how the matchmaking really works in CS:GO, or how many games it takes to rank up or what.
I've won like 10 games in a row on Counter-Strike before and haven't ranked up. I'm just like,
Yeah.
what do I have to do? Who do I need to sell my soul to?
Yeah.
I will find out. But Valorant, like after a 2-win, 3-win streak, you're going to rank up. So it just seems a little bit more motivating. League of Legends, I've just been stuck in silver for the longest time. Got into gold for like a month and then realised that I was in the off season.
Oh, no.
I was so sad. And then when I next went to go play League, I was like, why am I ranked after being gold? I was so sad. But anyway, I'll cry about that later.
Yeah. Right. Well, there we go then. So that's 4 for FPS, and I guess I'm the one lone MOBA supporter.
So we
That's
need a new
interesting.
5th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
you
the
can't
team.
play Valorant
So-
with us. That's it.
so it's not allowed.
No. Sorry.
We'll get
Uh,
Rolo in.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Special
nice.
guest Rolo, yeah. Not bad shout.
Doberman playing
Kill him with cuteness.
Valorant. Exactly. That could work. He's got some great call outs as well.
Brilliant. So I think that kind of brings us to the end quite nicely there. So once again, thank you to you all for coming on, and we really appreciate the time you've taken to chat to us about your experiences in esports. I'm sure we'll have you back on for some reason or another in the future. But I
If
think
you're lucky.
if we're lucky, yeah, that's good. True. But for now, I think, Bryony, is there anything left, I think, for you that you'd like to say before we close this out?
Well, I think it's been really interesting to learn about my colleagues more. And thank you again. It's been really fun.
Perfect. So thank you, everyone. Whether you're watching via video or audio, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll have more episodes coming soon. Make sure you follow all the British Esports social channels, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, everything like that, to stay in tune with what we have going on. And we'll see you when we see you. Thanks for tuning in.